We'll start with the usual shilling, like, comment, subscribe, share, rate, whatever. Now, let's get into the video. Elric of Melniboné is the grandfather of dark fantasy alongside Devilman. So we will honor him in the best possible pseudo-intellectual way we can do on this channel with a book summary. But it's not any Elric of Melniboné book that we will tackle. No, we'll be doing this as a graphic novel from 2013, The Ruby Throne. Written by Julien Blondel, with art and color done by Didier Poli, Robin Recht, and Jean Bastide. There's no better way to start this than with the opening pages that I will read to you, since I cannot explain them and do them proper justice. Melniboné, the Dragon Isle. With this impregnable fortress of ivory and obsidian, Imrir, the dreaming city, the capital of darkness, where cries of agony mix with the purest of songs. Melniboné, the birthplace of the most ruthless and the most decadent race in the history of the Young Kingdoms. An uninterrupted reign of 10,000 years. 10,000 years of magnificent offerings and conquests, all for the glory of chaos. 10,000 years of an empire that today may come to a sudden end. The Melnibonians. I remember a time when black swords armed your ancestors. This is what Melnibon used to be before you came, my love. Ariok, Xiombars, Mablodi, the greatest lords of chaos, whose favors were sought by the sorcerer kings of Imrir. There is not a demon and not an element that they could not invoke, not a creature they could not enslave. It was the most dazzling incarnation of chaos in the world, and it brought promise of eternal torment and ecstasy. The empire of sorcerer kings and dragon masters, the dreaming towers of Imrir and the ruby throne. Not a nation in the world with walls strong enough to withstand the onslaught of the harvester of souls, the empire of your ancestors, and the legacy of your father, Sadrik the 86th. The empire that you were born to destroy. Your legend and your name will be inscribed in our memories. The White Wolf, the Pawn of Gods, the Champion of Ariok, the assassin of our people. No man can equal your power. No woman is worthy of you. The most beautiful queens in the world would give anything to die at your hand, just like your mother did before them. The greatest rulers will fall at your feet, cursing your name, just like your father did. Elric, son of Sardrik, welcome to the world, last Emperor of Melniboné. Take advantage of these years without tenderness. Learn to savor the taste of blood. Learn vice and greed. Learn jealousy, treason, hatred, until you are ready to call for me, beg for me, curse me. Wait for me, my love, because soon we shall be reunited. The first image during these pages is quite a display, with naked women being tortured. It talks about how evil and decadent the Melnibonians are, or used to be, and the pages color the birth of Elric. The text itself is prophetic, knowing how the Elric saga is and how it ends. The panels help illustrate the kind of story you, the reader, are getting into. These two elements paint the story to come in such a way that if you don't like it from the beginning, I don't think there is a chance for you to like it ever. Now, we're gonna get into the story proper. And funny enough, it starts with Elric on the Ruby Throne, but not in the same position as the cover. From the angle presented, things look more distant, almost like it's not the same man. Next to him, we see a raven-haired woman, who inspired Yennefer later on, but that's besides the point. The text shows us that Irkun is very displeased with Elric, who is the current emperor. He doesn't see him as fit to rule the great nation of dragon riders and sorcerer kings. In truth, Elric is just a sink emperor, who is always surrounded by parchments and needs potions. One of Irkun's advisors blames the drinking, saying that while Elric isn't a conqueror, he should not doubt his cousin's power. Irkun gets angry at that and calls Elric an albino and a philosopher. And next comes this line that gives us some interesting world building. The glory of Melniboné has not been forged in the hushes of libraries, but in the blood, the terror, and the trampled souls of its enemies. In the past, the power of our name alone was enough to shake kingdoms and shatter empires. The name of Melniboné. His advisor tries to talk him out of what he's thinking right now, but the prince refuses that. When discussed, he remarks that the only thing they are good for now is drinking and entertaining, like common humans. He says all this while crushing the skull of a human and drinking the pouring blood. Irkun has gone tired of this courty life and wants to wake the place up and remind the gods of chaos that there are still Melnibones in the world. His advisor tries to stop him, but the prince is done with that. The few panels we have of this really convey the decadence that Melnibonéans are living in. You could even call it their cultural zenith. A bloody meridian of sorts when it comes to pleasure and cruelty. Next, we go to Irkun, that stands in front of Elric and the woman and greets them. Here we learn that the raven-haired woman is Irkun's sister, Simoril, and Elric's cousin as well. This only enforces the decadence of the Melnibonéans and shows their Habsburgian tendencies. The prince presents his gratitude to them and says he came to show his respect. Elric says they go straight to his heart. That's kind of funny. The emperor wants to know why the prince came, but he says he did so to show his regards to the emperor and his divine companion. But Simoril tells him that's enough. He isn't fooling anyone and asks him for what he wants. Through some nice pleasantries and charisma, he says that he wants what everyone else in the court wants, and that is the attention of the emperor. Then he turns and talks to the other people in the court, telling them it has been long since the Lords of Chaos came to them, and that Elric will grant them a magnificent gift by calling Ariok the first of their kind. In the comic, Irkun refers to him as the first of our kind, which implies a kinship of sorts with this Lord of Hell, Duke of Hell. I have to go a little bit meta here because it gets weird. But the elves of Melniboné are a humanoid race descended from dragons. And spoiler alert, I guess, to an age-old story, Ariok is a Duke of Hell that appears in many shapes and forms, from a morbidly obese fat man with a crown to monstrosities, because I don't know how to put it else. Okay, my presumption with the first of our kind message is that the Melnibonéans consider Ariok part of their own race, either ascended or gifted a lordship of chaos. But you can ignore this because it's just me, rolling wheels and trying to find meaning and stuff. Simoril calls her brother crazy for wanting to disturb the Master of Swords, but the prince responds back with taunts that why shouldn't they, in fact? Is she afraid that Elric might fail, or that he is too weak to try? Irkun tries to argue that since he has become emperor, Elric has starved his people of the glory of war and blood, and that now he wants to starve them of chaos as well. Before this could continue, an elf named Divim Tavar interrupts them, a thing that makes Elric stand up from his throne. Divim tells Elric and the rest of the court that they had found spies in the city, and they are being interrogated by a man named Dr. Gist. Irkun is disgusted at such thought. Elric asks to be taken to the spies before they get turned to scrap, and tells his cousin to entertain the court in his absence. Elric and Divim walk and talk about the spies. To reach the capital of Melniboné, Emir, whatever, is quite an impossible task, because the island where the empire is laid is protected by a sea maze, one that not even the great armies could cross, without the help of the elements or fine sorcerers. But 3 spies managed to get in. Those spies are called barbarians from the south, from the kingdom of Dorel. Divim proposes betrayal as an option how they could get there, but Elric becomes exhausted and leans on a wall. Tavar asks him if he's alright, but Elric brushes him off, saying he's in need of Simuriel's care. I can't help but comment on how good the coloring on the pages look in this. It's quite a superb work. As we can see from this, Elric suffers from a disease that is draining him, besides the albinism that he suffers from. We'll get into that later. Elric reaches the workshop of Dr. Gist. The good doctor is grateful Elric came, saying how his visits are so rare. Elric doesn't welcome the doctor's pleasantries and asks him what he found out. The good doctor tells him that one of them was more talkative, but that the way they traversed the sea maze and the name of their leader has been erased by magic. What he did find out was that a giant fleet of mercenaries was coming for the city of Ymir. The spy didn't know the exact number, but they did know they were to arrive in 2 days. The panels for this one are quite interesting. Firstly is the way the doctor looks. That's a thing of nightmares, lacking in hands but with spider-like appendages on his back. The spies are held in the air by magic, I presume, and have their hands cut off in a way that makes them look like puppets with wiring sticking out. The doctor is torturing them by stabbing them with spider legs, and he wonders why Elric only sends him a card on Christmas. We now go to the War Council, where Irkun and Divim and another dude are discussing what they should do. The other dude suggests fighting on the sea, but Irkun wants to burn them and asks Divim how many dragons he has left. The answer is not that many, because the prince sent the last awoken ones against the Vilmirians, and none of the other dragons have the strength to fight, and won't have for months. The prince then asks to conjure the legions of Piarai, but Elric cuts their discussion, reprimanding him that his vanity cost them more than the enemies attacking them. He then makes the decision that they will fight at sea and crush them there, with sorcerers up in the air. While the council is going on, Elric is leaning against a pillar, and when the focus is on him, he looks to be in a terrible state. Irkun stands above Ymir and contemplates of the great enemies that have tried to conquer its obsidian structures and towers of chaos, and how they all failed. Even the Lords of Law did not try to take the capital. We get a shot of the city from above, from, I guess, Irkun's point of view, which looks kind of good. It's quite an impressive city and looks well. While reminiscing, the prince asks if they should tremble in front of barbarians now. A bald elf comes to the prince, and the prince asks him if everything is in order. The elf responds with yes. The barbarians raise their anchor and are on their way to the city. The same bald elf erased the memories of the spies, so no one will suspect the prince. Irkun decided that if the emperor refuses to lead them into battle, they will simply create an enemy to fight. The prince congratulates the elf for his good work and pushes him over the ledge. Remember how Elric is sick? We now see how he gets treated for his illness. He stands in a pool of water, naked, as Cimmeril cuts the belly of an elf woman. She bleeds in the pool, but she isn't the only one. Blood flows from different corpses towards Elric. Cimmeril is also naked for some strange reason. She chastises him that he shouldn't be so greedy, because he is consuming them faster than she can prepare them. Even saying that at this point he is getting closer to consuming more blood and souls than they ever offered to Ariok. Elric in this state looks like an addict in the panel where he asks for more souls. He says he needs them more than Ariok needs them, mentioning something interesting, that Lords of Chaos are not born with cursed blood. Two things about this. The elf that gets cut has an interesting face. Like the lights are on upstairs, but there's really nobody home. Or she could just look terrified. But seeing how she just stands there for Cimmeril to cut her, I'm more inclined to say she was hypnotized or somehow induced into this thanks to Cimmeril's preparations. Another interesting thing is how Elric refers that the Lords of Chaos are not born with cursed blood. Now, my initial thought when reading this is that he suffers from leukemia. But after looking up a little bit more, I found something interesting. Elric suffers from oculocutaneous albinism, which is commonly known as OCA, or the common form of albinism, the one that turns your skin, eyes, and hair white. This is something you can see in many mammals and even in crows. But my theory is that he suffers from the Hermansky-Pudlak syndrome, which is the basic albinism, OCA, that comes packaged with blood disorders, bruising issues, and lung, kidney, and bowel diseases. Or he might have leukemia. Or, might as well just be cursed blood since this is a fantasy story, and I'm just trying to be a narcissist to prove how smart I am to the 20 people that will watch this. Anyway, let's continue this comic. This scene continues with Cimmeril asking what was in her brother's head to ask Elric of summoning Ariok. But Elric knows he did this to prove that he's a weak emperor, that he's not fit to rule. Because both of them know what Irikun really desires. She understands that, but she doesn't get Elric's wishes. Why would the Emperor allow him to challenge disrespect him publicly so many times? Elric says that this place would be empty if he punished everyone that doubted him. Plus, he appreciates that Irkun challenges him to his face, not behind his back like others. She warns him that her brother fears him, but will do anything for the throne. They flirt a little, and it's implied they have sex in the pool of blood. Jumping forward in time, Elric is being equipped with his armor for war, and Divim comes to him. Divim tells him the enemies will be here in a few hours, but Divim looks worried. Elric asks him what is wrong. The enemy is more numerous than they initially expected, but Divim doesn't see this as a problem for the victory of Melniboné. Divim is no seer, but he saw Elric falling into the abyss. Elric seems accepting of his fate, if destiny so wants of him. Elric now stands in front of Irkun, Divim, and the other elf from the council. The prince asks if he wants to grant him the honor to lead the fleet in his name, but Elric says he offers him the honor of fighting by his side on his flagship. Elric is going to lead the battle from the front. Then we get a call of war from Elric. Quench the flares. The sea mays mists hide our presence. Let our enemies come to us. Let the maze wear them out, and the cold numb them, until fear creeps into their ranks, until that fear becomes terror. Slowly, until it drives them mad. For the lords of the higher worlds, for the ruby throne, to me, Melniboné. The two sides clash thanks to some boarding actions. The barbarians go straight for Elric. Divim yells to protect the Emperor, but Elric retaliates by saying he can protect himself, as he cuts down a barbarian. Yirkun is happy to see Melniboné got its Emperor back, and Elric says he never left. The barbarians eventually withdraw, and Yirkun wants to chase them. But Elric doesn't do that. He summons from the depths the legions of Pirai, an undead legion of enemies that Melniboné had defeated in the waters before. Elric offers the barbarians as a gift for them, and they accept it. It's quite an interesting scene as the barbarians are overwhelmed with fear at the sight of the undeads. Yirkun is happy to see that, but that offering to Pirai took a lot from Elric, and now he is weakened. So he tells his cousin to finish the strugglers as he rests, and then he gets some time to think to himself. Cymoril, my strength fails me. My cursed blood is killing me. Of all my race, destiny chose to make me both the most powerful and the weakest. And then it put me on the throne so that everyone can see my struggle. Neither human nor demon. Is this what I am now? An abomination, condemned to kill in order to live off the blood of others? Help me, Cymoril. Give me the strength I need. I don't know anymore. Should I hold on to this wretched life, or let the oceans take me with it? As he is thinking, a barbarian comes from behind him, climbing with the help of a rope on the ship, and drags Elric by his cape into the water. His cousin comes to help Elric and cuts down the barbarian. Elric is hanging by the rope. His armor is dragging him down. He asks for the help of his cousin. Yirkun even extends his hand and wants to help him. And in a moment, he has a realization. As Elric falls into the water, he hears his cousin say that it was an honor to fight by his side. Divim comes and asks about the Emperor, but the prince tells him there was nothing he could do. Yirkun says this line, which is interesting and I really like the way it's worded. The ruby throne has been orphaned, which holds an interesting significance with the story of Elric, but that comes later on, way later on, not in this video. During the fight, Elric gets called demon twice. One time by the mercenary leader who refers to him as the White Demon, and another by the barbarian that dragged him. He gets referred there as a demon. And that is what we call world building, good world building. Because by this point in the graphic novel, you as the reader might share the same sentiment with regards to the Melnibonians. Anyway, the armada reaches the port, and everybody's looking at the Emperor's flagship. On it stands Yirkun, with his fists raised. The audience raise their fists in the air back, and Cymoril cries. This last scene is very well made, since the response to what is basically the king is dead, long live the king, is done in black and red. The silhouettes are in black, while the sky and Cymoril's tears are in red. A stylistic choice that, I will say without any semblance of regret, that is as good as the red dress in Schindler's List. Not as impactful, of course, but still very good. Back in the capital, Cymoril screams, "Where is he?" Not referring to Elric, but her brother, calling him a mangy dog. Basically, she knows her brother screwed Elric over. While Yirkun plays innocent, and has the guards escort his sister out. Elric is falling to the bottom of the sea, but he gets saved by Strasha, the Lord of the Sea. Elric is grateful, but the Lord of the Sea leaves him with an interesting premonition? Prophecy? I guess truth works as well. Elric, son of Sardrik, ruler of Melniboné, we salute you. The ocean cannot let you die in this kingdom. Your life is precious to us, Elric. An ancient pact binds us, a promise made long ago to your family. Soon, you will grant our deepest wish. Soon, you will destroy the source of decay, the contaminants of our kingdoms. Soon, you will destroy Melniboné. Right under this part, we get another look at the decadence of Melniboné. A dude is burning alive, while some women are torturing another, while a couple is screwing in the back. But the debauchery continues as we go into the throne room. That might as well now be called the fornication room. Some elves are proclaiming Irkun as the new emperor, but he refuses for now. Important, for now, as he wants to pay tribute to Elric, his cousin, for 7 days and 7 nights with a wild dance of Melniboné. Then he would pick his wife. He wanted to name her, but before he could do that, Elric comes back and surprises everyone. Irkun tries to keep up the act that the emperor drowned and he saw it with his own eyes. He almost slips at some point and says, Elric is dead. I saw you drown. Of course, at the sight of Elric, everybody turns against the traitorous prince and their loyalty stands with Elric, who accuses his cousin of wanting to murder him. Devim even has a knife to the throat of the false emperor and tells him to just say when. Cyril wants Elric to kill her brother. But Elric says that even the slowest, most painful of deaths would be too sweet for him. So he offers his cousin the pleasure of feasting at his table one last time, because he would banish him from the city and condemn him to exile in the young kingdoms. Elric tells him, "You will lie at my feet like a human slave. You will eat the hearts of those who dared follow you and raise their swords against me." I like this part where he says, "You will lie at my feet like a human slave." Because remember what was the disgusting thing that Irkun had in the beginning, what he hated doing? Drinking and entertaining, like common humans. This is quite a nice serving of poetic justice, I might say, and it's fitting for a man like Irkun. Now, this next part happens in an interesting place. Cimmeril and Elric are in a place filled with crystals, giant crystals, and in those there are bodies, the bodies of the former rulers of their kind. Cimmeril judges that what Elric had done is quite bad. It's a bad decision. Elric disagrees, because there is no greater disgrace for her brother than exile. But Cimmeril isn't having it. She thinks Elric needs to send a message, one to everyone that would dare stand against the Emperor. Elric notes how she is quick to condemn her brother to death faster than he is his cousin. Interesting aspect we'll get into later on in the story. Standing in front of all their ancestors, traitors, cowards, people that have sold their lives, families, their emotions, and their souls just to receive power from the Lords of Chaos. Elric concludes that Irkun isn't the worst of them all. In fact, he's the most Melnibonian. Cimmeril says, "Sometimes I have the feeling that you are ashamed of your own blood." Elric stands in front of the crystal coffin of his father. He says nothing to his lover, to his wife, but says to his father, "What about you, father? Are you ashamed of your blood?" This really puts something into perspective, because by now a new reader can see that Elric is a little bit different from his own kind. While sure they are of the same race, Elric seems much more noble in a way. It's not all black, and this comes into play thanks to the grey morality that the original creator Michael Moorcock brought into the world of fantasy. And yeah, you can say that Game of Thrones has grey morality thanks to him. Funny enough, I think they're friends. An interesting aspect I want to bring up, remember Drizzle, the dark elf from D&D that was an outlier for the rest of his race, that he was not like them, he was different. Well, before Wizards of the Coast butchered D&D, he was exactly that. He was basically an Elric character, and it made a lot of sense. But this is an Elric story, not a D&D story, so we'll continue. I know your pain. I know the hunger that gnaws at your insatiable heart. Avenkar, come to me. You that feed on souls, you that feed on agony. I invite you to a feast that no other can offer you. Avenkar, devourer from the depths. It is me, Irkun, Prince of Melniboné. I open for you the gates of the dreaming city. I invite you to Imirir. Elric is announced by Divim that there are enemies in the city. They are under attack. Elric learns then that Irkun broke out of his cell thanks to making a pact with Avenkar. The Emperor gives orders for battle and realizes that he must find his wife because Irkun is surely going after her. He finds her pretty soon in the embrace of his cousin that had behind him some help in the form of Avenkar. Elric is curious how could he do this to his own people, but his cousin asks the people he banished him from, which, point taken I guess. He promises that he will take care of Cimmeril, like she deserves, which of course infuriates Elric, and out loudly says Cimmeril was right. He should have killed him when he had the chance. Then Elric goes for a strike and he starts fighting Avenkar. But he isn't able to fight the beast and gets put to the ground. There, Irkun taunts him that when he wants to, Elric's life is gone. But he has other plans for him. And he teleports away with Cimmeril. Guardian of black swords, protector of my ancestors, with blood and souls I called you Ariok. Lord of the higher hell, Lord of the seven darks, let me serve you. Ariok, by the name of my father, by the blood of my ancestors, by the rings of the sorcerer kings of Imirir, I invoke you, Ariok. Ariok, I offer you this blood. I offer you these souls. Ariok. Elric. My dear Elric. My favorite among all Melnibonians. At last, you finally decided to summon me. But what a delicious mystery torments your mortal soul. You could have asked me for glory. You could have asked me for power. I would even consent to join you with one of my daughters, if that was your wish. And yet, you prostrate yourself at my feet. All in the name of love? Rise, Elric of Melniboné. You will never again kneel before me. We have so many things to accomplish together. And this has been the story of the Ruby Throne. It's a very nice and interesting way to set things up, and it's a good introduction into what I would say is modern Elric. And it works and it fits, and I can't really complain about it. And anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.